Shalom, and welcome back to Bnei Noach Academy, Thoughts on the Torah. Please remember to hit the like button, to subscribe, and most importantly, to share this insight and inspiration with friends and family. So in the previous class, we discussed verse number 2 of chapter 1 in the book of Leviticus, and we explained the first part of the verse, namely that the idea of getting close to God is not just by observing some ritual or reciting or chanting a prayer, but rather the ultimate way is, if one wants to truly get close to God, is to work on self-refinement, self-improvement. And that's by taking even our own negative traits, our quote-unquote animal within, and bringing it closer to God, refining it. So let's take a few examples from the latter part of the verse. It specifies, by giving some examples, it says it should be from the livestock or from the cattle or from the sheep. Later verses actually will be even more specific. We'll discuss which sacrifices or offerings call for a goat or a young goat, which ones call for a ox, which one call for a cow, which one call for a sheep, and so on and so forth. Let's take just some of these and use them as examples in our lives. Think of an ox. An ox is wild, full of power, very tenacious, and almost stopping at nothing. Think of the person who's very ambitious, but also is a bit wild, difficult to tame, difficult to settle down, perhaps even very stubborn, perhaps even worse, has a terrible temper. Think of that, and obviously, I think it's quite clear that these are negative traits for the most part. What God is telling us, I didn't give you these traits in order for you to have a messed up life, in order for you to be distant from me, in order for you to hurt others. Rather, I gave it to you so when you refine these, in fact, when you harness these what seem to be negative energies, when you harness it to the positive, now you can be that super servant of God. You can be that exceptional person because you have that passion, you have that drive, you have that excitement. Think about taking these, again, what seem to be negative traits and reversing them, turning them around to the positive. Now you go out of your way. You go with extra fervor and excitement to go to do a favor for another, to save another person, to help another person, to do good for the world, to go against your own comfort zone, your own comfort, and go out there to help another person, to bring good into the world. Perhaps become that leader that trailblazes the path of good, of righteousness. Let's take, for example, the lamb. The lamb is a very subdued, very laid-back being. Think about a person who's very passive, doesn't get excited about things. That could also be terrible, because if you're passive when it comes to helping others, when it comes to caring for others, you could just be impartial. You can just be apathetic. That's terrible. That's terrible. That's no way to be a servant of God. That's not why God put us here. But imagine you take that passivism, you take that laid-back aspect of you, and you apply it to things that are not necessary, to indulgences, to things that do not bring good to the world, and you apply it to that. Or imagine if you tend to get upset about the little things, and instead you train yourself to be passive, not to let the little things bother you. Now you can focus your attention on being a better person, on bringing good to the world, on bringing positivity to the world, on getting closer to God. These are just two examples where, quote, you can take your animal and turn it into something fantastic. And that is what the verse is telling us. Take those negative traits that it seems you've been cursed with and look at them as a blessing, because it's for you to harness them and to utilize them for the good. And then they become ultimately the greatest blessing, even greater than had you not been born with these traits.